What's going on with Brandon Aiyuk? What do you think, Vish? Is Brandon Aiyuk? I didn't see the YouTube. I looked for it. I didn't see anything on there.
Yeah, I haven't
Um,
found it either. I have not
I
found it
mean, this
either.
is a guy who wants to get an extension. He's got 2 more years left on his deal. The Niners don't typically budge on that kind of thing. How's this going to go?
I don't think he's getting an extension this offseason.
I don't either.
Yeah, I'll say that point blank. I don't think he's getting one this offseason. We talked about his tweet already. I thought his tweet was indicating that, he wants to get his extension. And I think that here's my guess on what happened on this situation if we want to start speculating. And we have really nothing to go off of, but it's Friday, March 24th, and there's not much better to do than speculate. I think Brandon Aiyuk wants an extension this year, Larry. I think Brandon Aiyuk told the 49ers he wants an extension this year. And I do know from how the 49ers do contracts a little bit that you got to have a lot of leverage to really go in there and get an extension with it. And the difference for Brandon Aiyuk compared to Nick Bosa, compared to Deebo Samuel, compared to Trent Williams, compared to George Kittle, compared to Fred Warner, is all of those guys walked into the room of the extension with a first-team All-Pro on their resume. Brandon Aiyuk does not have a Pro Bowl on his resume, does not have a first-team All-Pro on his resume, doesn't have a second-team All-Pro on his resume, and has 1,000-yard season that was barely 1,000 yards. Okay, so I think that those things would have been used to say, hey, you're not going to get an extension this offseason, or we're not going to give you an extension. And then I think that's why he tweeted the way he tweeted, because Brandon Aiyuk knows, we all know, that there's more nuance than, hey, Brandon Aiyuk is just an okay player. That's why he had, 75 catches and 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns this season, which is a solid receiver season, but nothing to be writing home at, right? We know that, actually, Brandon Aiyuk, if you featured him a little bit more, would have a little better stats. We know that, hey, Brandon Aiyuk has had to deal with all this different drama with the quarterback situation. And then we know how well Brandon Aiyuk has not only played as a receiver, but as a blocker. But I think that's the disconnect, Krug. The resume and the player aren't exactly lining up. And I thought Brandon Aiyuk's tweet reflected hey, I'm the fourth option on this offense, and I still had 1,000 yards. Don't do me wrong because I'm the fourth option. I'm still a kick-ass player. You know it, and I know it. Don't get into the nuances of, I didn't have this accolade or this accolade because you want to try and, penny pinch me. That's the theory for me, Krug. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it's a good theory. I mean, there is a downside to having all these weapons. The downside is come contract time, there's probably going to be somebody who's better than their stats. There's only one football. This is part of my argument why Roger Craig belongs in the Hall of Fame. He played with Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice was an unbelievable player, but he was also the greatest most dominant statistical player in the history of the league.
Right.
Rodgers' numbers it doesn't take a genius to know that Rodgers' numbers and Brent Jones' numbers and the guys who played with Rice, John Taylor, their numbers were somewhat suppressed by playing with Jerry. Now they got a bunch of rings, you know what I mean? So a lot of them aren't really walking around complaining about it, but their numbers, their individual numbers were suppressed. Now, Aiyuk's individual numbers are suppressed playing with Deebo, Kittle, in this offense with all these weapons. McCaffrey now. There's no question. So hopefully they can work something out. I agree with you. He's not getting his extension this year. There's just no way. And if I were the 49ers, I wouldn't give him one right now. I'd want the situation to, first of all, I like motivated players. And I know players don't like that, but when you get paid, you lose motivation. When you haven't been paid, you have more motivation. So I want more motivated players, not less motivated players. So if I could have everybody playing on a 1-year deal, and I was a football coach or a football personnel guy, I'd be like, hell yeah. Yeah. Because I want everybody on that edge. But if I'm a football player, I want some security. I'm going across the middle fearless, and I can get keyholed by any big-time safety. C.J. Gardner-Johnson could put his helmet into me the way he put his helmet into Isaiah Pacheco in the bowl, and that could be it. I mean, like a wrap. So I don't blame the players for wanting to get the green. But at the same time, it ain't going to happen. And you can tweet about it. You can talk about it. I guess you can hold out. You can miss off season OTAs. You can do whatever you want. End of the, they don't have a lot of leverage. You can take away
And
your services. What do you want out? You want to be traded? I mean, there's a bunch of guys right now. Jerry Jeudy wants to be traded, supposedly, or Denver's talking about trading Jerry Jeudy. They're talking about trading Cortland Sutton. They're talking about trading KJ Hamler. I just read this morning D-Hop's going to go for a 5th and a 6th. So I don't know if I want to trade him because I don't know that I would get his value is a late first round pick, and I don't think you would get that in return. So I'm not trading him, and I'm not extending him. I'm just telling him how much I love him, and I'm going to feed him, and I understand where he's coming from. I can sympathize with him, but I'm not going to change it. If I'm the Niners and if I'm Parag, I would just say, hey, we'll take care of you when the time's right, but we're going to decide when the time's right, okay? And
yeah,
that's
and they
probably
have
not
the fifth
okay.
year option with him. They have the 5th-year option with him too, so they don't have the rush to negotiate with him this offseason. And they have Nick Bosa, who takes priority over him.
Right.
Sorry, Brandon Aiyuk, Nick. That's just how things work when you have the defensive player of the year. And so that kind of leaves them, Krug, with the 5th-year option, and then hey, we'll touch your contract after your 4th season. You go produce again. And it sounded like from the tweet, and look, I don't want to comment on the YouTube video going off of just Mo's comment here because I've been unable to find or watch the video. But it sounded like Brandon Aiyuk was saying the same thing in the tweet. He was like, all right, watch this. Watch me in year 4. Rockets up. I'm going to come in and kick ass. And you and I were complimenting him. We were like, yeah, this is how you should be. You should want your money. And when you're not getting it the way you think you should want to go show what's up to them. You want to show them what's up and go get your money. But so I ultimately, Krug, I think this is kind of the natural situation. And here's my question: do you think they'll once again find his targets to be, behind George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey because of the money hierarchy and because those guys make that much more money than him? And do you think the 49ers would prefer? Because Brandon Aiyuk is not going to have a lot of leverage coming to the negotiation table if he doesn't have the first team all pro that those guys had. I mean, we know that for Kittle, the negotiation was difficult, right? There was a time where his agent, Jack Bechtel, wasn't even talking to the 49ers for a month. We saw last offseason how difficult the negotiation was for Deebo Samuel. The negotiation with DeForest Buckner was difficult, and they traded DeForest Buckner. The negotiation with Trent Williams was so difficult to the point that Trent Williams had to call Kyle Shanahan in the last hour to get a couple extra dollars to make sure that he stayed. So we've seen that the negotiations haven't necessarily gone smoothly, though they've ultimately ended up being done. With them not going smoothly and with those guys coming into the negotiation table with first team all pros, I wonder, Larry, I wonder.
Well, okay. First of all, he was the number 1 target in the passing game on the year. He had
Yes.
114 targets.
He was also the only weapon that played all 17 games.
Well,
In
that's
targets
my
per game,
point
he was
is
second
that
behind Deebo Samuel.
who's going to get paid? The guy who stays healthy.
Right.
I mean, look, he's been the guy that stays healthy. So if he continues to stay healthy and produce, he's going to get paid. I don't think there's any question about that. But yes, the Niners are kind of dangling the carrot. I don't think they're going to acquiesce. They're not going to give in. They're not going to give him an extension this year. He's going to, as you said, he's going to have to go prove it again. But if I'm him, I'm okay with that. Between Kittle and Deebo and McCaffrey and Jennings and Juszczyk and basically every weapon on the team, Danny Gray, fill in the blank weapon, there was one guy that played the entire schedule. Actually, 2. Him and Ray. And really, Ray's more of a special teamer. Ray only had 25 targets all year. So really, Aiyuk, of the full-time guys, the guys who are your absolute number ones, he's the only guy who played the full season. So, and if I had to bet my life savings on between Kittle and Deebo and Aiyuk and the running backs and the fullback, who's likely to stay healthy this year, I'll put my money on Aiyuk. I wouldn't even think twice. So if I'm him, put my head down, do my off-season work, show up ready to roll, and have the year of your life. Have a career year. Play in all 17 games, catch 100 balls, score double-digit touchdowns, have 1,200-yard season, something like that, and you'll get paid. I think that's the solution there.